Mahomes, I think, just by watching his game, right? I mean, he'll be rolling to his left and just throw a basically underarm, sidearm pass to, the middle, the opposite end of the field, and it's like, talk about the ability to adjust, both with kind of your body, but also being mobile in the pocket and outside of that.
Welcome back to the Substantiate Podcast. Again, this episode is a little delayed, but I just wanted to make sure that the editing was pristine. So today, we have a very special episode. I believe this is the first time that the topic that we're covering, we're going to see play out in real person. And of course, I am alluding to the match with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen on June 1st. I'll talk about it more later. I'll talk about the formatting of it more later. And this week, I am talking with Matt and Hayden from the First Down Rundown podcast. I was on their show not too long ago, so you can scroll down to the show notes, find that episode if you would like. And before we get to my conversation with Matt and Hayden, let me tell you about SeatGeek. More specifically, a story. So a couple of weeks ago, it's a Wednesday, and I'm on my way home from school, and I realized, well, hey, the Yankees are in town. I'm gonna go see a Yankees-Blue Jays game. So I pop open the SeatGeek app on my phone, and SeatGeek makes it so easy to tell whether I'm getting a good deal or not. So I'm looking around the map of Rogers Center where the Blue Jays play, and there's all these different color, like little bubbles. So a big green bubble means you're getting a good deal, and a small red bubble means you're getting a really bad deal. So there were a couple red bubbles, but I went with a green bubble in the second row on the first base foul line. And SeatGeek just made it super easy because I got a great price for those 2 tickets. I went with a friend. And so when you go, and you can use SeatGeek for baseball games, basketball games, hockey games, playoffs going on. You can use SeatGeek for concerts and basically anything that you're buying tickets for. And when you go to SeatGeek.com or you download the app, use promo code SubstantiatePod to save $20 off of your first order. So again, SeatGeek.com, code SubstantiatePod, the best way to buy tickets to an event. Let's hear from Matt and Hayden Vozar from the First Down Rundown podcast. Today, I'm joined by Hayden and Matt Vozar from the First Down Rundown podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm Hayden, guys, and this is my co-host Matt with me. Yeah, we're First Down Rundown. We are also a sports podcast, and it's pretty much for the casual fan, the avid fan, pretty much. If you're into sports, just even a little bit, then we do kind of like an overview of all the sports topics that we have planned for the day, and then we go really in depth for those avid sports fans who are, who are more interested in the content and kind of already know the overview and want to get the specifics and want to get our hot takes and opinions and everything. So.
Yeah, I'm Matt. I'm Hayden's brother. Pretty much everything he said is true. We have episodes every Tuesday and Saturday. Sometimes we have, most of the time we're doing it by ourselves. Sometimes we have guests on. We actually had an episode already with Will. So so we kind of are doing the reciprocal favor here, joining his podcast. But definitely go give that episode a listen right after you hear this one.
Yeah, and I'll link to that down in the show notes. So just scroll down. You can click on that. And that was just from March, I think. So, it's still pretty recent. Yeah. And recently, you guys also mentioned on your podcast you're planning on doing an in-depth kind of research thing on the NCAA. So do you want to take a minute, explain what's going on with that and how far along you are?
Yeah, So basically, it's going to be called the NCAA Doomsday Series, where if you don't know already, the NCAA is under a lot of fire for so many different reasons. And actually, the president, Mark Emmert, just announced recently that he's going to step down by June of 2023, so June of next year, basically. And it's huge news because basically they're going to need to find a new president for the NCAA, and that's hard to do when the NCAA is under so much fire already. And so, yeah, we're basically going to do a series where we just kind of underline everything that's happening currently, and then we're pretty much just going to give our own solutions and how we would diagnose the situation in different ways. We're going to go super in depth with it. We want it to be our thing that we kind of give people information on, because we don't really have something yet that has set us apart from the rest of the podcasting pack. And so we want this NCAA Doomsday Series to really be what sets us apart, where people can go get all the information and really go in depth with it, because Matt and I are really, we're really detailed guys, especially about an organization such as the NCAA, which is so big. But yeah, Matt, I mean, if you want to talk a little bit more about it, because I didn't really go too in depth with it, but yeah.
Basically, Hayden kind of summarized it as like, essentially there's the conferences, in and around the NCAA. They're kind of under the NCAA, but essentially the NCAA is just a big nonprofit. But the problem is they are making however much money, billions and billions of dollars off of the entertainment product which the athletes produce, right? And so that's kind of where we started hearing about this NIL deal, name, image, and likeness, allowing athletes to profit off of their name, image, and likeness. And so kind of as this ramps up, there's almost less and less of a need for the NCAA just to, in and around college sports, because there's already conferences, there's already teams. These guys are already, going through the monetary deal and whatever. So there's honestly no need for this higher entity to just basically be there for no reason, right? I mean, they put on the events, like you have March Madness and stuff like that. But, as a whole, the NCAA doesn't really do anything except put their name in front of all the colleges and then just hand out penalties when they're due. So I think that's kind of where we're seeing a little bit of a shift here in college sports all around, not just football or basketball, all of college sports. And so that's kind of what we're going to go in a little bit more in depth on. We're not too far. I know Will asked how far we're into it. We haven't done much on it, and I think the reason for that is we were actually talking about this recently. Is right now, we still have the NHL playoffs. We still have, obviously, the matches coming up. We have the NBA playoffs. So there's still kind of a sports going on. But we're kind of thinking, during the dog days of summer, when it's really just baseball, there's not going to be too much, hot news articles, sports media stuff going on. So that's kind of when we're going to take our opportunity, and really, really shine with this NCAA thing. But yeah, so it's probably too long of a plug there. So sorry about that, Will. But we can go ahead and get right into the match.
No worries. And one last thing about that. I mean, I was just reading an article or two in The Athletic, I think yesterday, about, I think it was the commissioner of the Pac-12 and SECs, testifying in front of Congress and stuff about NIL. So there's a ton of stuff going on there, and glad someone's going to explain it all. So getting into Capital One's The Match on June 1st, less than a month away. We're recording this on May 9th, and this is the 6th iteration of The Match. It is, again, like I said, June 1st at 6:30 p.m. I think it's on TNT. That's where all the previous ones were. It's at Wynn, Las Vegas, and it's going to be 12 holes in a style called green sums, which is a variation of foursomes, but both players tee off on every hole. Then they pick the best drive and play alternate strokes from there. So it's unclear whether they'll repeat that again this year, but it's likely. And some other interesting things going into this match is the odds. So, again, as of May 9th, Brady and Rodgers are favored as minus 205 favorites. So, bet 205, win 100. and they opened as minus 160, so the odds have shifted towards them. Mahomes and Allen plus 175. And when I was doing some research here before, interestingly enough, the underdogs have won 3 of the 5 previous versions of the match, and the only underdogs to lose were both Mickelson and Brady. So, don't bet against Brady. We'll have to see if that holds up in golf. He's seeking for revenge. And the last real thing here is handicaps. So for all purposes today, we're assuming a level playing field. According to golf.com, Tom Brady and Josh Allen both have handicaps of 8.1, and Aaron Rodgers 4.6, and Mahomes has an unofficial 7.7. So that was a lot, but that's basically what's going on June 1st. So as if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you might remember previous golf episodes. We had different categories, and we're going to go through those categories again today, breaking down each team's characteristics and abilities and strengths in each category. So we'll start it off with hard work ethic / the ability to improve and adjust. So, Hayden, why is that something that's really important in golf, to have the hard work ethic and be able to adjust and improve your game?
I think, first of all, hard work and work ethic is something that's really important in golf, because if you've never played golf before, you know that if you just go out, well, you don't know, but if you have played golf before, then you know that if you go out there and you just try to hack around at the ball, it's not going to work the first time you do it. You're not going to be Tiger Woods the first time you tee off. You're not going to be Tiger Woods in your whole lifetime, no matter how much you play. So yeah, golf is one of those things that it looks a lot easier than it actually is. It's probably the sport that displays that kind of dynamic the most, in my opinion. And so I think that hard work is definitely something that you have to have. You have to practice every single day if you want to even become close to becoming a pro at the game. And so I think hard work is definitely something that you want in golf. In terms of the ability to improve and adjust, you're going to hit bad shots. The pros do it all the time. They shank balls into the woods all the time. You got to be able to go out there and adjust your play according to how you're playing, right? And you can't let past shots get in your head. And so I think that adjusting on the golf course and being able to kind of have a wide range of shots in your repertoire is a great thing to have, because you're not going to be hitting from the fairway every time. So that's definitely where I would go with that.
Yeah. And so, Matt, which team do you think would have the advantage in this category between Brady and Rodgers versus Mahomes and Allen?
So this is tough. I almost want to say that, because, if we're going to kind of do it in a little bit of, a hybrid category, there's hard work ethic and there's ability to improve and adjust. I mean, obviously we've seen, and if you've watched any of the Men in the Arena stuff with Tom Brady, he just has the greatest work ethic in probably the history of human as a species, right? I mean, this guy is just constantly trying to get better and never takes a break. And so it's like he definitely has the work ethic. And I would say Aaron Rodgers, to a certain extent, maybe not as much as Tom Brady, because I think Aaron Rodgers has a lot of, raw skill, but is still someone who, if you're going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, you're not going to do that by just, sitting around doing nothing all day. I mean, we saw all those stories of Rodgers and then Devontae Adams when he still played with the Packers, just every morning and every night running routes, just getting on the same page and developing that chemistry. So I think that takes a lot of work ethic. Now you go over to Mahomes and Allen, right? Who I think are probably two of the best examples of guys who are able to improve and adjust. And I think that Josh Allen's probably the biggest example of this, right? We saw in his first couple years in Buffalo, he didn't really have it, right? People were kind of saying, I don't know about this guy. And sure, he has a great arm, but, he didn't have a great completion percentage. He was throwing interceptions. He was throwing his body around. He wasn't taking care of himself. And then obviously, he's turned into, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. And so I think that proves to me that he's able to, to improve and adjust. And obviously Mahomes, I think, just by watching his game, right? I mean, he'll be rolling to his left and just throw a basically underarm, sidearm pass to, the middle of the opposite end of the field, and it's like, talk about the ability to adjust, both with kind of your body, but also being mobile in the pocket and outside of that. So I kind of see these guys as even in this category. I hate to kind of do the cop-out answer here, but I think that for the amount of time that Brady and Rodgers have been doing it, playing football and playing at such a high level, and for how many accolades they've both achieved. Obviously, Brady's won more Super Bowls in his career than any team in the NFL history has, and Rodgers obviously coming off of back-to-back MVP seasons. These guys really prove that they have the hard work ethic as well as the ability to improve and adjust to anything. Because, right, I mean, once you kind of get to that older age, and we've seen especially with Brady, people start doubting you. Oh, he's washed up. His arms not as good as it used to be. That also takes the ability to improve and adjust based on how the game is changing, based on how your body's changing. So I think Brady and Rodgers will take this one for me.
Yeah, I have to agree with that one. And obviously you have to note Josh Allen, as well as the slow start that the Chiefs got off to last year and how they picked themselves up. But Brady and Rodgers, they've just been doing it for so much longer. And especially in a game like golf, where you can see someone like Phil Mickelson go out and win the PGA championship last year, at the age of like 51. And especially in a sport like that, age isn't always as bad of a thing as it is in a sport like football, where you have to be super athletic and, in many cases, younger. Full disclosure, yesterday I bought another 2 boxes of Built Bars because they are the best protein bar, and honestly, they're practically candy bars. They taste so good, with, on average, about 5 grams of sugar, about 18 grams of protein, and usually between 140 and 50 calories, just about. They are the best protein bars there are. And so what flavors did I buy yesterday? Well, I bought brownie batter puffs, which I haven't tried yet. I've got high expectations because every other bar I've had has been super delicious. And the other flavor I bought is birthday cake puffs. And that's a white chocolate flavor. And again, all the white chocolate flavors I've had in the past, like white chocolate cookies and cream, have, again, all been great. So head on over to built.com. You can buy the usuals or the limited time flavors, and you can also save yourself 10% off your order using code SUBSTANTIATE. Again, at built.com, code SUBSTANTIATE, save yourself 10% off the best protein bar in the world. So I guess we'll just count up the categories for each team, kind of like match play in golf. So that category goes to Brady and Rodgers. And now our second category is your ability to control emotions. So when you're out on the golf course and, you have a bad shot, are you going to stay composed? Are you going to go out and try to get too aggressive to get yourself back into a good position there? And sometimes it may wind up costing you. So it's definitely another important attribute in golf. And when you compare, again, let's stick with the old guy versus young guy aspect to it, Hayden, what's the difference in terms of experience and just overall emotions in the game?
Yeah, I think that in football, it definitely is something that you have to learn as you go, right? It's interesting because the two guys, the two young guys, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, the guys that we're talking about here, I've never really seen them kind of lose their composure in any way that's kind of notable on the sidelines. Actually, I was gonna for these two guys, I guess these 4 guys, comparing them, like I've seen Brady lose his cool more than I've seen Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes lose their cool on the sidelines. And that's a little bit interesting to say. Obviously, Brady has played for much longer than both of those quarterbacks combined. But yeah, I think that actually, like, it's tough to say here, but I think just in terms of like what we've seen from both of these groups of guys, I would definitely say that the young guys have been able to control their emotions better than the old guys. And that's interesting to say, because you would expect the old guys to be able to do that kind of thing because they've learned from the game and they've been, immersed in the game of football for so long. But we see Rodgers too. Like, Rodgers can get fired up as well. I don't know if he really gets mad, but he just kind of like stops talking to people. That's what I feel like he does. So yeah, I would definitely go with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes on this one.
Yeah, and I think it was in Brady's last game last year in the playoffs for what we thought would be the final game of his career. And I believe he got his first ever personal foul. I think I'm not sure if it was taunting or something else, but he was yelling at one of the refs.
He was like yelling at the ref or something. Right?
Yeah, and that was like the first in his career, and when you've played for like 22 years, and probably another couple in the playoffs, it's, that's kind of impressive. But still, yeah, I think I would have to agree with you on that one, that Mahomes and Josh Allen, they're definitely a calm couple as opposed to, all the drama regarding Aaron Rodgers last year. And, Brady certainly had his drama this offseason. So, Matt, I know you didn't get to speak on that topic. You agree with Mahomes and Allen getting that one?
I think Hayden diagnosed it pretty well. And I think that it's almost, when I was thinking about this topic, I was almost kind of thinking like, it's funny because Brady and Rodgers have been in the league for so long and obviously proven how good they are. They almost have this like leeway to where they can, have instances where they, their emotions get a little bit out of whack, because that, yeah, despite, how mad they may get on the field or off the field, they're still going to go out there and perform, right? And perform to the best of, the NFL's ability. And so I think that to a certain extent, Mahomes and Allen, yes, obviously they've proven themselves and they're two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL as well. But to some extent, they're kind of still the young guys on the block. And so if they're out here, causing scenes every game, whether it be right on the field, off the field, that can call into question a little bit of their ability to lead a team, right? To kind of be what we want them to be, which is, a star NFL quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years. Right. So I think that Hayden's right, is that, I think that may be even the explanation behind it, is like, you have to control your emotions. They're doing a good job of it, but they almost kind of have to at this point in their careers because of just kind of where they're at. Obviously, kind of besides their star power, which I think also helps them in being stars, right? Because they're able to, control their emotions and lead a team and play hard when it matters. Whereas, Brady and Rodgers have been there and done it. Obviously, both NFL MVPs and Super Bowl MVPs, multiple times over. So, they kind of have the ability to a little bit crazy sometimes.
That category is to Mahomes and Allen. So the current score is 1-1. And we won't spend too much time on patience, our next topic, because it's somewhat related to your emotions. But still, when it comes to specifically the patience part of it, I guess in a football sense, maybe more of looking over your routes and checking all your options and making the right decision. Which quarterbacks stand out the most to you guys?
Yeah, I would say that I think that Tom Brady would probably stand out to me the most, because, and everybody, makes fun of Tom Brady because he throws a lot of drag routes and he throws a lot of short routes, and that's how he, methodically moves up the field. But you can argue that that kind of patience is what wins games, because, you can't argue that he hasn't won games, right? Like, you can't argue that he's not good at winning because he's won 7 Super Bowls. And so I think in terms of like patience moving up the field, I think that Brady would definitely win, because he doesn't take as many deep shots as Aaron Rodgers does, as Josh Allen does, as Patrick Mahomes does. Patrick Mahomes is the guy that you think of immediately when you think of, taking deep shots down the field and trying to score immediately. But I'd like to see what Matt thinks in terms of like the specific reads, because you can think of patience in terms of moving down the field methodically, but you can also think of patience in terms of moving through your reads methodically and kind of like spending more time in the pocket. So I want to see where Matt stands on kind of how their patience is in the pocket as opposed to kind of moving down the field.
Yeah, and I think that's where we see that in a situation like this. Obviously, I think Rodgers has been able to, he can run pretty well, and he's been known to run for that extra yardage to get a first down every now and again. But I would say that overwhelmingly we would say Mahomes and Allen are the more mobile of the four quarterbacks in question here. So I think that for players like Brady and Rodgers, like they kind of have to learn to, speed is not going to be their asset, right? So they kind of have to learn how to stand in the pocket if they need to have that mobility, because there's also a distinction between, you can be like a, crazy good athlete, obviously, Josh Allen's, when he takes off and run, he'll plow through three different guys and then, spin through the next guy and flail himself out of bounds. But, there's also something to be said for the fact that, like, when you see Tom Brady back there in the pocket, his feet are, if he needs to move even a slight bit, to the left or right or forward or backwards to kind of avoid that defender that's trying to come for him, that can make all the difference in the world. And so I think that that's kind of like the minutia of the game that can be analyzed here. And I think that, honestly, just to kind of speak to the patience, factor for this, I would say Brady and Rodgers will win this one, simply because to a certain extent, especially when you're playing quarterback, honestly, part of knowing patience or being patient is honestly being impatient, right? So knowing when to get rid of the ball, because a lot of times, and we've seen this, especially with younger quarterbacks, they'll hang on to the ball forever and they'll either get sacked or they'll throw, a crazy ball and they'll get intercepted or whatever. But a lot of times, we'll see Brady just, step back in the pocket. He maybe had 3 seconds, there's nothing open, and he'll just throw it into the ground, right? Because he knows that he'll get that down back. He'll be able to work it out. It's better to just, move on with the play, move on to the next down, rather than potentially screwing up the entire game and giving the ball to the other team. So I think that's something that Brady and Rodgers, show through their patience, is just like when they don't see anything out there, they're not going to force it. They're going to throw it away. And that, I think, is almost a next level of patience to where, you're not, it's not just how long you stand in the pocket. It's also knowing when to get rid of the ball.
Yeah, and that's another good point there, that there's two sides to it. It's not just waiting. It's also knowing when not to wait. Now, score being 2-1, Brady and Rodgers in the lead, and moving into confidence. And obviously, all of these players are confident in what they do. Some might even say that it bleeds over into arrogant in some cases. But when it comes to the young guys there, Hayden, how do you think that they exemplify confidence?
Yeah, I think you made a really good point about, we want to know who you were talking about with the arrogance. The young guy's confidence, I think you brought up a really good distinction, because arrogance, I don't think, is really confidence, because you can be confident, but like it's not a healthy confidence, right? And so I think the young guys do have a really healthy sense of confidence, especially I think that Patrick Mahomes, what happened to him this past season, as William, you mentioned earlier, with how he, kind of started off a little bit slow and he was kind of too confident in his arm at the beginning of the season, and he ran into some trouble with throwing picks and losing games and everything like that. But then he started to kind of, I think, humble himself a little bit back down to the point where he said to himself, okay, I have to take some checkdowns to Travis Kelce. And, I can't just throw the bomb every time to Tyreek Hill or McCole Hardman or whoever. So I think that Patrick Mahomes definitely kind of got back to that healthy level of confidence that he needed to succeed. Obviously, they were very successful towards the end of the season as well. And then I think Josh Allen I think his confidence has just been on a steady rise ever since we talked about Josh Allen being a little bit shaky at the beginning of his career. So I think that both of these young guys, I would say that they would probably take the cake in this confidence category, just because they do have a healthy amount of confidence. Obviously, Tom Brady, we can't really knock him on anything because he's Tom Brady and he's, his confidence has been key all throughout his career. But I think that Aaron Rodgers actually leads to the old heads downfall in this category. So I'm going to go with the young guys here. I think that Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes definitely display a healthy confidence.
Matt, anything quick to add?
Yeah, no, I'll honestly agree with Hayden on that one. And it's honestly funny because I kind of just talked about in the last section, or we kind of been talking about how it takes so much hard work and so much talent to be able to play as long as Brady and Rodgers have, and also to be as good as they have. But it honestly, to become a star as quickly as Mahomes and Allen have, you have to have confidence, right? You have to have confidence that you're going to make the right play. You have to have confidence in the rest of your team that they're going to make the plays, kind of required for you to do that. So I definitely agree with Hayden there that, in terms of confidence, especially right now where these guys are at, Mahomes and Allen will definitely take it from me.
I also agree with that one. So our next category, ability to read the course. And we were talking about it a little bit before with patience and going through your progressions as a quarterback. And your ability to read the course or the field, it's obviously crucial in terms of how aggressive you want to be, what shots you're taking. So back to Hayden, which quarterbacks do you think are able to make something out of, again, not always having the most open wide receivers, but just finding the right shot to take?
Yeah, so I think this could go two ways. I think the way that you were describing it towards the end there, making something happen out of nothing, I would definitely go with the young guys because, like Matt said, they're more mobile. They can get out of the pocket if they get into trouble within the pocket. So I would definitely go with the young guys there. But I think in terms of just being able to read a course and being able to go up to the defense in a football game and say, okay, well, this is the coverage that they're in. This is my first read. He's probably not going to be there, so I'm going to go my second read, whatever the case may be. I think that Brady and Rodgers, the more experienced guys, definitely take the cake there. I would say that in terms of just the sheer ability to read the course and say, maybe off the tee, like, where are we going to try to go from here? Where's the best angle to drive in terms of
course management,
having a good angle towards the hole. Yeah, I would definitely take Brady and Rodgers just because, again, they're the more experienced guys. They're most likely to know the defense better, know the guys on the other side of the ball better because they've played against them more times. So I would definitely go Brady and Rodgers with this one.
Yep. And the only thing I'd add before I send it to you, Matt, is in the Super Bowl last year, when we see Mahomes just flying in all kinds of horizontal positions and getting the ball to bounce off his receiver's face. And, although Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, that was not their greatest performances, still just the whole something out of nothing. You can't completely discount Mahomes. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I agree with Hayden. If you've been doing it that long, you clearly know how to read the field and you've developed chemistry with your receivers. I'm going to add another point from a golf aspect, which is just Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers have been playing golf a lot longer than Allen have, right? So, I mean, if they have more experience being able to read the course, quite literally read the course, right? So that's kind of my reasoning. I think that's pretty good, and it shows through. We saw obviously the Formula One race was in Miami this past weekend. Tom Brady was golfing with Lewis Hamilton, right? So he's just out there all the time. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers has proved himself in the other Capital One the matches previous. So yeah, I think that just these guys have played golf better. They can read the course better.
Yeah, actually, both Allen and Rodgers played at the AT&T Pro-Am at Pebble Beach back in the beginning of February, I think it was. And the day that the tournament started and they're announcing Aaron Rodgers, and it was that night that he was awarded the MVP. And so they're announcing his name, and while at the time he only had 3 MVPs technically, and so they call out Aaron Rodgers, 3-time MVP, and he just holds up the number 4 because he knew he was winning. And that goes back to a bit of the arrogance, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so now Brady and Rodgers back in the lead 3-2. And our next category is concentration. And again, we've kind of touched on this throughout our discussion here, but going back to it quickly in terms of focus and staying in the moment, Matt, which quarterbacks, which team do you think is best?
I mean, this is a really close one because obviously as a pro athlete of any sport, you have to have, the utmost focus and concentration. I'm going to give it to the young guys, slighter edge, just because, in some circumstances, we've seen the plays that they make, right? I think arguably we can look at this objectively and just say Brady and Rodgers, they're amazing at what they do. And they know that they can get away with, throwing the ball into the dirt sometimes and, and chucking it deep when maybe they're not actually going to even hit the receiver. But we've seen the crazy, just unbelievable plays that Mahomes and Allen have both made, whether that be, on the ground or through the air, as well as, their arm talent, obviously, is, both of them is off the charts as well. And so I would say, to really play the game that the way that both of them do with Mahomes and all of his, just throwing the ball, again, like Will, you were saying, right, hitting his receivers in the face mask before they're even able to catch the ball, as well as, rolling out of the pocket, throwing it sidearm. Josh Allen, same deal. He'll chuck it, 70 yards down the field, but he can also just plow through defenders. I would say it probably takes more concentration just for the style of game that these quarterbacks play, and just having so much going on around them and still able to perform at the highest level and, be two of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I think, obviously, right, it takes concentration for all these guys and Brady and Rodgers have proved that they're able to do so. But I think that just for the style of play, Mahomes and Allen, I think honestly take the cake on this one.
Yeah, and one play really sticks out to me with Josh Allen. It was last year in the first round of the playoffs in Buffalo against the Colts. And Josh Allen has this weird play. He's like running around, and it looks like he's going to run it into the end zone from like the 2-yard line. And then at the last second, a defender like grabs his ankle and he starts to fall, but he just like flicks the ball into the end zone. And I forget who caught it, but it was just a bit of that patience and, waiting for the right play there. And that, again, just goes back to the style of play. Hayden, do you have anything to add to concentration?
Yeah, I would just say that, we talked a lot about the younger guys, and I would want to add that for the older guys, the argument for them, I think, would definitely be, the end game situations that we've seen them be in, especially Tom Brady. I can't really think that much or of that many times that Aaron Rodgers was in a close situation and had to come back and win, at least in an important game, because he's kind of blown it in the playoffs recently. So I would definitely say, for the older guys, Brady definitely is so reminiscent of, just having concentration in late game situations and having the concentration to come back from a big lead down. I'll give a little hint to that Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I would probably agree with the young guys on this one in terms of concentration in a big play. I think that's probably the more exciting thing to watch. And so that's probably why I would go with Allen and Mahomes, just because it is definitely exciting to watch Brady come back from a 25-point deficit. But I also would rather watch Allen and Mahomes go back and forth and exchange, 3 or 4 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes of the game, like we saw in the AFC Championship. So I'm definitely going to go Allen and Mahomes on this one, but I think it's a little bit closer than people would expect.
Before we get to our next category, and it's a big one, risk assessment, give me one moment to tell you about Fanatics.com. Fanatics.com is the place to go when you want to buy any kind of apparel for your favorite team. Right now, the NBA and NHL playoffs are in full swing, and you should get on the bandwagon of any team and do it by buying a shirt at Fanatics.com using the code down in the show notes. And, I'm just looking at some of the designs they have right now for the Western Conference and Eastern Conference Finals. They've got this really cool t-shirt. It incorporates the NBA 75 logo in a diamond, and then it also has a team logo, and it says 21-22. It's a pretty cool t-shirt. And again, you can find that. You just go down, you click on the link in the show notes, and bang, it'll pop up. And you can get those shirts. Also, NHL, obviously, Stanley Cup playoffs going on. Round 2 just starting up. And yeah, so between the Panthers and the Lightning, who seem to be there frequently, and the Hurricanes, as well as teams like the Rangers, first time back in a little bit, or the Avalanche. I'm not going to lie, the Avalanche are my pick to win the Stanley Cup after they swept Nashville in the first round. But yeah, you can get any shirt or sweatshirt. They've got all kinds of cool playoff designs over fanatics.com. Link in the show notes. And get yourself a nice little gift here as summer approaches. So moving on to our third to last topic here, risk assessment. And you're in the rough. Are you going to just go with a nice easy shot, just land it back on the fairway, or are you still going to pull out the 3-wood and try to crush it all the way to the green? So in terms of risk assessment, Matt, which quarterbacks do you think historically have had the better judgment?
I think Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers have. Just, whether it be football or golf, I feel like just, again, and this kind of goes back to the style of play, which I mentioned before. This could also even go back to the patience factor that I mentioned earlier too, where when you're looking at a situation, you know what to do with the ball, and you're not going to try to force anything. You're not going to try to be a hero when you could potentially, really mess things up, and it could go kind of the opposite way that you're thinking. So I'm going to take Brady and Rodgers. I think that, their ability to be so good at risk assessment is one of the reasons that they've played for so long, and that they've won so many games and MVPs and everything like that. So I'll give it to the older guys here, because obviously, as we've seen too, and I think Josh Allen's gotten a little bit better at it, but both Mahomes and Allen, for all of the crazy athletic and amazingly unbelievable plays that they do have, they also have some plays where they take that extra chance that if it happened, it would be the greatest play that we've ever seen. But, it actually kind of ends up hurting them in the long run, which I think Brady and Rodgers just don't have as many of those instances. So I'm gonna give the risk assessment to the older guys here.
Hayden, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I would definitely agree as well. I think that Brady and Rodgers definitely have this category definitely on lock. I mean, they do have an advantage because they've been playing for longer, so much longer than Allen and Mahomes have been. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Allen and Mahomes kind of take a more calm and slow and steady approach on the course, because I think that they know that people are probably expecting them to try to hit bombs and go for it, go for the green and 2 on par 5s and everything. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Allen and Mahomes go out there and they actually look a little bit more composed than Brady and Rodgers, just because they might want to change the narrative a little bit and kind of change the stereotypes on them. But I definitely think that Brady and Rodgers would be the safe pick here. So,
and building off of that, in that a bit of a underdog mentality from Mahomes and Allen, moving into competitiveness, do you think that Mahomes and Allen are going to come out here and, just like we've seen 3 out of 5 times so far in the match, that the underdogs come back and win? Do you think that could happen here, or that Mahomes and Allen have the drive and the extra motivation?
I would say that, competitive-wise, I don't know. It's so tough because of all we've heard, from Tom Brady and how competitive he is, and that's really what's driven him to become what he is now, which is obviously, pretty much the greatest football player of all time, right? Then obviously, Rodgers shares that too. I think that you can't get to this point without having that real competitive drive to be the best. I would say though, and again, I'm a huge Packers fan, so I'm an Aaron Rodgers backer for life here. But we know, like, all you guys, exactly what I'm about to say, which is basically, he is kind of a diva, and so sometimes, if things aren't going well for him, or he's upset or whatever. Sometimes that I don't necessarily think it maybe affects his play, but I think that just from a sheer competitiveness standpoint, it seems to sometimes get to him, right? So he's not able to just like lock in and just be completely like you were saying, Will, just come from behind. I'm going to do this no matter what. I think sometimes it doesn't necessarily even get to his head, really. I think it's just kind of like, it's not just like laser focused and just all about it like Tom Brady is. And so that's where I feel a little bit split on this one. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys to kind of choose.
Yeah. So I think here, and I think, Matt, you gave a perfect assessment of it. And I think that's definitely the toughest one up until this point that we've had to choose between. And I don't know, I'm a Patriots fan. And so I love Brady. And even though, he's on the Bucs now and has been for the past few years, I still love Brady. And so I'm never going to go against him in terms of competitiveness. I think that, like, if there was one word to describe Brady across all facets of his life, I think it would be competitive. His competitive nature just shines through in everything he does. I know he's lost both matches, or all three matches or whatever he's been in. And so that's like a little bit, that's where I'm faltering a little bit, but I can't really see Brady losing anymore. He just doesn't lose many times at all. That's just not in his DNA. So I'm going to go Brady and Rodgers on this. I do agree with Matt that Rodgers, at times, it looks like he kind of is a little bit out of it, but I think that Brady's competitive makes up for the lack of his competitiveness. And so I'm definitely gonna go Brady and Rodgers here. But again, Will, if you have a case for Allen and Mahomes, I am definitely open to hear that, because you might be able to change my mind. But I'm gonna go Rodgers.
I think I agree with all that you're saying. And the better question is, how much does Aaron Rodgers weigh down on Tom Brady in that sense, right? We see in the last couple years, Aaron Rodgers not able to get over the hump and into the Super Bowl when he's certainly had the team to do so, with the exception of Mason Crosby, the last 2 years, and losing to the Niners, and then the year before to Tom Brady and the Bucs, both times at home in Lambeau. So I think the better question is how much he weighs Brady down. And I think for that reason, to make it interesting here to the end, currently the score is 4-3, Brady and Rodgers, and we've got one category left. So let's give this one, for the sake of some good radio or good podcast, let's give this to Mahomes and Allen, and let's go to the sudden death, right? This is going to be the walk-off victory. You're on the 18th, or in this case, the 12th hole, and you're coming up. You just hit your approach shot, and you're chipping now. You're about to get onto the green, which leads us to the last category, touch around the greens and putting. Two aspects of golf that are really unique, and I think the closest thing you could compare this to is red zone offense. So Hayden, what do you think about the putting and chipping?
And I guess you could apply the word finesse, or kind of like the aspect of finesse, to any aspect of the golf game. But I think that here, what we're trying to get at is, finesse around the greens. Putting can be very finicky sometimes. And so if you have good flow and you have good finesse with that aspect of your game, then putting is going to come to you pretty easily. So my assessment is definitely going to be based on finesse, and you can go both ways with this. I think, you can say, okay, well, Brady to Gronk is a finesse play, just because, that fade in the back of the end zone, you have to put just enough touch on the ball, put it just high enough so that Gronk can catch it, and, the linebacker or the corner can't get to it. But you could also say, Allen and Mahomes have the most finesse in the league, just because they're able to scramble around, and, we see Mahomes run 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage and basically turn his back to the defense for like 5 whole seconds and then make a play out of it. Will, like you said, diving throws and everything like that. And so I think in terms of, I don't know, it's hard to go Allen and Mahomes here, but I think I'm going to go Allen and Mahomes. But when you think of finesse around the greens, you don't really think of the old traditional guys like Brady and Rodgers. I definitely think Mahomes and Allen are going to be the better putters slash chippers or in this matchup. Again, their golf games, I haven't really seen Mahomes and Allen play, but I think that just in terms of, again, based off of how they play football and their football game, I think that Allen and Mahomes are going to take this and squeak by.
Yeah, Matt, what about you?
At first, I was going to go with Brady and Rodgers just because, like I said before, I think that, having played more golf, they probably are just better at this. But I don't know. I mean, Hayden brings up a good point. And then to your point, Will, of kind of the analogous, putting and chipping is kind of basically kind of like, red zone offense. I mean, obviously all these quarterbacks are great at red zone offense, but I would say for, all those years that we've been watching, or less, 3 to 5 years we've been watching the Chiefs, it's like every time they get inside the red zone, they're scoring a touchdown, right? Yep. And we see that with the Bills now with Josh Allen after his, transformation, how good that he's gotten. It's kind of the same way. It's like he's either going to run it in the end zone or he's going to find someone open in the end zone. But either way, the Bills are getting a touchdown out of this. So I think that, Hayden, made some good points about their ability to kind of have finesse in those areas when it counts, when you have to. But then, even comparing it to the football sense, like you were saying, Will, I think that, if we're talking red zone offense, I think that everyone could see how Mahomes and Allen have really excelled in that area. Now, obviously, this probably will then, I guess, give the win to Mahomes and Allen. I think that overall, if I'm betting on this match, I'm going to take Brady and Rodgers. I think that just, they've just played a lot more golf. They've shown, or at least been in these matches before, so they kind of know what it takes or whatever. So I think they'll win the golf match, but it was an interesting exercise to kind of go through this and just compare everything and look where we ended up. Who would have thought, with this kind of, the way we've laid things out here, that Mahomes and Allen would almost, take over Brady and Rodgers in this. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. And the other thing to go along with that is obviously we could have done these categories in any order, but the order we did do it, well, it went Brady and Rodgers, Mahomes and Allen, Brady and Rodgers, Mahomes and Allen, and that went all the way up to the very end. So, it was really tight the entire time. And just to come down to that final category there, touch around the greens and putting, and just everything that goes along with it, right? It's something that you can try to make the comparison to a red zone offense, but that might be the most unique part of golf, where other sports, baseball or tennis, you're still hitting the ball hard. But golf, it's just a combination of so many things and eventually ends up in, what can sometimes be the most frustrating part of the game, or sometimes it can be the most fun part of the game, depending on what kind of day it is for you. And Mahomes and Allen taking the dub. So one other thing before we wrap this up that you notice, so when people say, oh yeah, Brady, he always had great defense in New England and Bill Belichick. Well, look at these 4 quarterbacks. Which one of them has a bad defense? Between the Bucs and the Patriots, the Packers, the Chiefs, and Buffalo, they all have good defenses. So I always hate that argument. So any last thoughts about the football aspect or golf aspect from you guys?
I'm just really excited to watch it. I think this one in particular is going to be really interesting because there's not any golf pros that are playing, right? Like we always see Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson or Bryson DeChambeau or another golf pro playing these, but yeah, I mean, it's just dudes who play football playing golf this time. It's, there's not going to be any kind of like anybody to fall back on, I guess, for these guys. It's just going to be their high scores and they're just going to have to live with those. So I definitely think that we're going to see a lot more high scoring in this one, just because again, these guys are, 7 and 8 handicaps. So they're not going to be able to be saved by Bryson's long drives or Phil Mickelson's shipping or anything like that. So I definitely think that it's going to be interesting to see how long it goes to, because I think like most of the time these matches go for a good 4 or 5 hours ish, and they're only like Will said, they're only playing 12 holes. And so if they're taking more strokes on each hole on average, it's going to go, obviously, like the broadcast is going to go for longer too. So this one might be a really long broadcast. We'll have to see, but I'm super stoked to watch it.
Yeah, when I see that there's a new match coming and it's 4 quarterbacks, and just listening to First Down Rundown and knowing that you guys are big NFL guys as well as golf, I was like, it's the perfect combination to have you two on to talk about, rarely when I discuss a hypothetical matchup, does it actually come to fruition and we can see what actually happens. So this is, the rare time where we can talk about it beforehand and then see what's actually going to happen. It's not like, Star Wars characters playing football where, it's entirely a thought experiment. This will be, something we can see how these predictions play out on June 1st.
No, that's honestly what I was going to say too. Is kind of a closing thing here is, and when I heard Hayden told me you reached out, and I was kind of thinking, I was like, okay, yeah, it's like Gabby won the match, and I was like, wait, this is so perfect for your podcast. I mean, this is the definition of what you do, and you're right. It's like, it's honestly so cool that, everything that we talked about today, normally, you could put in a hypothetical aspect, but it'll actually, play out on the field. And then, maybe even after it's over, we can kind of come back and look at our scores here and see maybe, we can kind of have this table up while we're watching the match and then see if we were right in kind of these categories and see if the players matched up in their actual performances as to what we kind of had judged here today. So I think it's kind of a perfect storm of things happening for this match, for your podcast, and obviously for us, like you said, just being big sports fans all around. But golf and football, kind of a weird combination, you'd think, but obviously it's working out. It's working out for all the media attention and everything that all the money that they're going to make from doing this, as well as content creators like us. So it's really great all around.
Yeah, and just like you kind of mentioned. I was reading before that so far they've raised like $33 million for Feeding America. So, it's a good cause too, that they're all contributing to. So before we sign off again, where can the listeners find you and on Twitter and the podcast?
Yeah. So our podcast is out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, pretty much wherever you listen from. I think we're going to be on Pandora as well pretty soon here. I just applied to or requested to be on Pandora recently, so I'll be waiting to hear back from them. But I don't think a lot of you guys are, Pandora listeners. So definitely wherever you listen from, we're going to be there. It's just First Down is the first word, and then Rundown is the second word. It's 2 words. First Down is 1, and then Rundown is the second word. And our Twitter is First Down RD Pod. That's the @ If you look up First Down Rundown Podcast on Twitter, it'll also pop up because that's our name, I guess. But then, our @ is First Down RD Pod. Yeah, just go follow us on socials. Obviously, check us out first. I'm sure you're gonna like us. I like to think that we've been improving ever since we started. We've definitely still have a long way to go, and so we want you guys to be a part of the journey. So big thanks to Will for having us on. I really appreciate it. It's always good to kind of grow with other podcasters, and Will he's doing it big, and he's super young, so it's really cool to see him doing this and kind of getting into the industry as well. He's been doing it for longer than us. So big applause to him for that. And I just really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for that. And you'll have the links to the podcast as well as the Twitter down in the show notes. So again, just scroll down, click on that, and you'll find it super easily. So thanks again for coming on, Matt and Hayden. And anytime you guys ever think of another hypothetical matchup, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Hope you enjoyed that one, and if you did, go on and share this episode with a friend or family member who you think would enjoy it. I mean, it's NFL and it's golf. What could go wrong? And as well, don't forget to head over Twitter and Instagram at SubstantiatePod, as well as Hayden and Matt's Twitter at FirstDownRDPod. Again, link in the show notes to all of that. You can find everything you could ever need in the show notes. So go down, check it out, and we'll be back here soon with another episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Substantiate. The best way to help support the show is to, number one, tell your friends about Substantiate. That is the number one way to support us. The second way is to leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Number 3, follow us at SubstantiatePod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.